Hello, I'm Freddie Sayers and this is UnHerd. Now that lockdown is finally starting to lift, we're going to be able to get out of the studio into the real world and find out what's really going on. We want to cover people, places, ideas that are overlooked by the establishment media but that are real and are out there. Luckily, one of our star columnists, Aris Roussinos, is a former war reporter. So we're going to send him off to the furthest fringes, the outer edges, in the battle of ideas. In this, the first of a series, Aris travelled to deepest Cornwall to meet a man who lives in a castle called Camelot. Check it out.
Tintagel in Cornwall, the legendary birthplace of King Arthur, has always been a mystical place. A small village perched on the edge of Atlantic cliffs, where New Age beliefs meld with Britain's Celtic past. But Tintagel's hit the headlines lately due to a more recent resident, John Mappin, who's been described as the mouthpiece of Britain's QAnon movement and as a prominent associate of American conservatism's wilder fringes. So have these exotic American beliefs penetrated into deep England? Is Mappin really dangerous, or just a harmless English eccentric? Could he really possess hidden knowledge? I've come to Tintagel to meet him and find out what's really going on at Camelot Castle. Hello, John. Hi, great to meet you. You're expecting us?
Yeah.
Hi.
Of course.
Thank you. What an amazing space.
Oh, you're welcome to Camelot.
After giving up on his Hollywood dreams, John Mappin bought the Camelot Castle Hotel with his wife Irina, using it as a base to raise his family and restore Britain's connection with the world of myth and legend.
I'd been very interested in the values of the mythology within the King Arthur myth. You know, the idea that the search for the Grail, the idea that the truth is out there, the truth might exist. And of course, every time that King Arthur story gets told, of course, I'd just come back from Hollywood where I'd spent 6 years, and I always understood that the myths, Hollywood of course is a myth factory, and I'd always understood that the myths are very powerful.
I just saw the Ben Garrison party in there.
Well, actually, this one was actually inscribed by Ben for my wife. The reason that we backed Trump was because I could see that he was a non-interventionist. And he was going to take America out of wars. And of course, he's the first president in the last 100 years, I think, that's not entered into a new military engagement. And of course, that's why they had to get rid of him.
Who's they?
Well, there's a lot of money made out of wars. You know, it's a $1.6 trillion a year military-industrial spend planet-wide. So the analogy I would use, if you and I owned a fireworks company and somebody came along and cancelled November the 5th and New Year's Eve, we wouldn't be very happy. We've worked very privately to, help in many ways, just in our own way, to really help people spot the causes of war and why they start in the first place. Turns out there's always a hidden third party.
Okay.
And if you can get somebody to spot who the third party is, very often things will resolve. There's no reason that you...
Are these, sorry, it's just a stupid question, are these different third parties for each individual war?
Well, actually, it could be the same group. Or in different engagements. Obviously, I'm not saying the people that started the First World War are the same people that started the Second World War. But the mechanism is always identical. There is always a hidden third party. The whole idea is, and this is actually an idea that L. Ron Hubbard discovered, the founder of Scientology. He discovered that if you have two groups or two individuals that were originally getting on, and then they stopped getting on for some reason, and normal means of communication doesn't resolve it, then there is always a hidden third party in the ear of one of them, and possibly at the same time in the ear of the other one. And that third party, that hidden instigator, you could call it a hidden promoter of conflict, is actually the cause of the conflict, and it explodes into view. That was when we met in Washington for the first time.
So did he sign this?
No. That's actually my signature on there, but this is just a way of thanking all our followers who helped make this happen.
Right. biggest. Oh, so that was when you won £100,000, was it? Or?
Well, it was at $140,000.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you had a feeling Trump would win.
Well, we one of the things I have been blessed with, and actually this is something that I learned in Scientology, is within Scientology, it understandably, because it's a science, is based on mathematics. And there is actually a mathematical algorithm that is part of the subject that helps a person predict outcome. It's called superpower.
Okay.
And it's a very, very extraordinary piece of mathematics or research that Mr. Hubbard did. And the application of that, funnily enough, in life can be used to help predict outcome. Now, I'm not sure you're supposed to use it to predict the outcome of elections and place bets with William Hill, but on this occasion, and actually the only reason I placed the bets was because I knew nobody would believe me.
Yeah.
Because I knew that he would win the minute he came down. Through the application of that algorithm, I knew that he would win.
Mappin's most recent venture is as part owner of a company aiming to reforest the Earth to counteract global warming, a project which has taken on Nigel Farage as an advisor. Mappin's hope is that by planting 1 trillion trees worldwide, the Earth can be saved. And he says his scheme is already well on its way to success. For all his eccentricities, there's a genuine and very likeable idealism running throughout his various projects. Is that a stone circle there?
This, of course, well, I tell you what this was, or is, this is the ripples of peace. It's concentric circles cut into the landscape.
Did you put that there?
Yeah, we put that there when they bombed Afghanistan. So this circle here, we lit a beacon here at Tintagel, a huge bonfire.
Yeah.
And we had about 800 people turn up to oppose the bombing of Afghanistan.
Wow. What, from the local village?
No, from all over the West Country. They came. We had about 800 people here.
Wow.
And that was the beginning of the Stop the War movement.
Really?
Yeah.
I'm not going to go too near the edge because I've got a slight fear of heights.
Have you?
A very strong fear of heights. But
Have you really?
I really do.
Well, you see, that's Merlin's cave there.
Wow.
And that goes straight the way through. And of course, Tintagel Island has been mined and is full of, burrows and so forth. So that's Merlin's cave through there. You can actually go through there and you can swim around the island.
Do you feel you were destined to live here?
This is a really interesting thing. I think one creates one's own destiny. I think that we make our beds and we lie on them.
Yeah.
Although I do think that there is also spiritual intervention from other spiritual forces. So whether that be a higher power or God or the Creator, I do think that certainly this is an alignment of some pretty special elements that came into play.
Mappin provoked a storm of negative publicity in the past after flying the flag of the conspiratorial QAnon movement, which believes Trump was engaged in a spiritual battle to regain control of America from a cabal of warmongering paedophiles, from the roof of his hotel. So I have to ask.
Yeah, of course.
About the flag.
Yeah.
If I googled you, I'd say about 80% of the results would be about you flying a QAnon flag over the hotel.
I had been invited to Washington to attend the Kavanaugh hearing. Do you remember that, Kavanaugh?
I do, yeah.
Right, and
Did you attend it?
Well, I was invited to attend it on the last day of the Senate.
Yeah.
And the Senate hearing.
By who?
And
do you want to ask?
Yeah, I don't want to get into who invited, but it was somebody very close into the Trump family. I was staying at the Trump Hotel.
Yeah.
And I was invited to a dinner, and seated next to me at the dinner was a fellow who I've gotten to know very, very well, but he was very high up in US intelligence, and he is now a freelance consultant in DC, a political consultant. But he was a senior officer. Why not ask him about it? And I was seated next to him, we were seated next to each other at dinner.
Yeah.
So I thought, well, have you heard of this QAnon phenomenon I've seen? What is it? And basically he got into a great detail. He was aware of it, and B, I said, well, is it just a bunch of gibberish, or is there something to it? Is there anything to it? Clearly some of it is absolutely cuckoo. But is there anything to it? He said, John, don't discount it. Both sides are using it. and it is it's been a very, very interesting phenomena. Do not discount it. So for that reason, I didn't discount it, and I kept on noticing, and then it continued to rise. I always understood Q to be an inevitability of the suppression of free speech.
Right.
Because the Nazis found this out. The Soviets found this out. If you suppress free speech and you suppress free people, what happens is free speech goes underground. You see, people have described me as part of right wing.
Yeah.
Not right wing at all. I don't even believe there is a left and a right in politics. There's up or down.
John had invited me to stay the night as a guest at Camelot. Over dinner with him in Irina, I tried to learn more about his worldview. With over 150,000 Twitter followers, Mappin has more reach than most journalists, helped along by his YouTube channel, Camelot TV, a recent casualty of social media censorship, much like the output of his political hero.
Donald Trump. He was a bolt from the blue. He took them totally by surprise. Now, here you are, you're sitting there, and somebody says, my God, we've got 4 years of this guy now. And that's the conversation over Christmas turkey.
Yeah.
And then somebody goes, what if it's 8 years? And then it starts to hit home. The 8 years of his policies, which they pretty much knew because he'd said what they were going to be during the campaign. This would totally undo what is called business as usual within the political, military, pharmaceutical, media, industrial complex.
So how does this connect to COVID?
So at that point,
Yeah.
you have to come up with a plan. How are we going to remove this guy from office when he is so popular? And his popularity among his base, if you remember during the election, he was doing these rallies. And then after the election, he continued doing the rallies. And before he had to close the country down because of COVID, he was a shoo-in for another 4 years.
I mean, do you think he would have won the election without COVID?
100%.
Right.
Personally,
Yeah.
do serve food. Personally, yeah, he would definitely have won, and the reason for that
Thank you.
is that COVID was needed to put in the postal voting system, and when you have postal votes, see, I'm not somebody that gets into this thing as was it election fraud, wasn't it election fraud. The fact of the matter is, a vast percentage of people voted using postal votes. How can you just...
So,
yeah.
Is that 60%?
And when you do postal voting, you know, it's very interesting. We had a very fascinating dinner with Nigel Farage the other day, and he said he's actually seen in this country, because we have a big problem with postal voting in this country, he's actually seen the postman going down a row of houses, and 5 minutes later, somebody turns up to, you know, and you've got 85-year-old Mrs. Smith from, you know, Acacia Avenue or whatever, and knock on the door, I'm here to collect your vote. If you or I were the most cunning, genius minds, super intelligent people, and we had the goal to make sure that Trump doesn't do 8 years, right? And could we have come up with a better plan than 2020 to ensure that he didn't get elected? Can you think of a better way?
while Mappin denies believing in the QAnon ideology, much of his worldview overlaps with its claims. I try to understand where QAnon beliefs end and Mappin's ideas begin.
Does blackmail exist?
Yes.
Is it a thing? Yes. Okay, so you tell me the quality of blackmail that you would need to control a high-level politician. And I'll tell you this.
Yeah.
It's not shagging the secretary.
Not anymore.
Not anymore. Maybe in the 1800s. Probably not even the 1800s, to be fair. It's got to be something of a very, very serious nature in order to be able to turn a politician that is elected on a peace platform and have them engage in the type of completely unnecessary war games that get played out on this planet. You know, how are such people controlled? Now, I don't know. I've never seen it. I have no wish to see it.
Yeah.
But I have heard about it, and I've heard about it from some very, very reliable people.
Do you mind me asking who? Or
You can ask, but I'm not going to tell you because
Sure.
it's not going to serve them, and it's not going to serve the issue, and it doesn't prove anything to anybody.
A charming and hospitable host, Mappin may hold eccentric views, but they're increasingly common. Not just in America, where they've entered the conservative mainstream, but now in Britain as well. Yet Mappin seemed to distance himself from open QAnon evangelism, even as his various claims seem to endorse its central mythos, so I asked him to clarify his stance.
So you're talking about child trafficking?
Yes.
And how hypothetically that could be used to blackmail politicians. You're talking about hidden figures provoking conflicts, starting wars for their own benefits. These are very broad, expansive, outlandish claims without providing evidence for
Well, I don't think it's an outlandish claim. I'm not making any specific claims, and I don't think it's an outlandish claim to suggest that there is such a thing as child trafficking. I think that is it. I think you accept that.
No, that's true, but to move from there to say that's a means of blackmailing the most powerful figures in the world without providing evidence or proof, then that becomes, it seems conspiratorial, right?
Well, all I'm saying is that the reason that many of these free speech movements have created, of which you've referred to one of them, is because there is a genuine concern with the public that if child trafficking is going on, then it should be stopped. And there has been tremendous reticence with the mainstream media to thoroughly investigate these instances of sexual abuse and child trafficking. All I'm saying is the mechanism a possibility? And if it is, we should be very alert to it.
Do you think people are on the cusp of a great awakening then?
I know they are. Now, how do I know that, as opposed to why do I believe that? Because I've seen it. I have seen people that I personally know, very ordinary guests. Listen, Tintagel is about as bellwether England as you can get. I'm not dealing with dyed-in-the-wool Trump supporters or people that have even heard of some of the subjects that we're talking about. Well, those people have changed. These are ordinary English people.
Do you see the Q movement as a kind of a morbid symptom of, you know, a broader dissatisfaction with, you know, censorship or kind of political division, or do you see it as containing some kind of essential truth, even if you don't agree with all its aspects?
It's actually an improvement. Sad to say.
An improvement on?
2020 is actually an improvement for civilization.
Okay.
Man has got to come up through realizing how he is being controlled. There are various different areas where man is being suppressed. What I see is that so many people have woken up.
Well, it's time to say goodbye to a mist-shrouded Camelot. That was quite a strange and slightly disorientating experience. John Mappin's creating his own political reality here as the king of the castle on the edge of the country, which he propounds with absolute certainty. Where it overlaps with objective reality, I genuinely can't say, and perhaps that's the most disorientating part of the whole experience. In that sense, perhaps he's the purest symbol you could imagine of our current strange political moment.